Now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
And welcome to the University of Logic, better known as Cristiano's Conservatory, correcting convoluted conversations. And folks, that's exactly what we are going to do this evening. I feel a little pity for my conservative counterparts on KFAQ and in fact most talk stations. They must live in turmoil. They could not possibly live in peace with themselves. It sounds strange, doesn't it? But I just don't understand them. Either you are consistent or you're not. There's no middle ground. There's no being. Conservatives, to me, are a little pregnant. You ever hear that expression? I'm a little pregnant. Not too much, a little pregnant. What they have is they have a moral crisis on their hands. In that they follow a line of thinking, but it doesn't make any sense. Moral sense. The subject that I'm going to discuss for the first half of this program, in the second half we're going to have a guest, which we're interviewing, who wrote a book called MicroSecession, which falls perfectly in line with my discussion of divorcing yourself from the system. But let me go back to this. We have a problem when we do not understand some basic human rights. And one of those basic human rights is the right to migrate, the right to move, the right to go wherever you please, provided you are not infringing on the rights of others. We don't seem to understand that. All week long, I heard one talk show host after another rail about immigration and how we have to get serious about protecting our border. I don't understand that. These are the same people who profess to want us to live in a aura of liberty, and they do not understand what liberty is. I want to give you an example. The other day, a family knocked on our door. It was a man, a woman. The woman had a baby in her hands, in her arms, and the man was, I'd say about 25 or 35 years old. You couldn't tell because he was looked like he had worked so hard all his short life that he had aged about 20 years further. He was holding in his right hand his young daughter. She was probably around 10 years old. They were emaciated, absolutely emaciated. How they even made it to my front door is beyond my comprehension. It just seemed to me, looking through their eyes, that they were starving to death. All they wanted was some food. And they were willing to do anything for the food. Mow the lawn, clean the house, fix the roof, anything. Now, being the kind soul that I am, but also understanding that I have an obligation as a U.S. citizen to secure our borders, I suspected that these four individuals might be illegal aliens. So quickly, I led them around the house into my garage. I closed the garage door from the outside, the inside, locked them in. I immediately called the police and told them I had illegal aliens, most likely in my garage, and for them to bring the Border Patrol or Homeland Security or whoever handles that. Just bring them over. which they did, and they were illegal aliens, they took them, put them in a wagon, and took them off. And was I proud of myself? I did the right thing, didn't I? I obeyed the law. I complied with the regulations that our Congress promulgated that allows only a certain number of people to come into this country. These people obviously were breaking the law. They were criminals. And I made sure justice was done. And I'm proud of it.
Sounds like they were hardened criminals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know how hard they could have been. They could have been mass murderers, especially little daughter. You see, when I go to church on Sunday, and the preacher talks about loving thy neighbor, I know how to think, you know. I say, yes, you love thy neighbor, provided your neighbor is not an illegal alien. And what about that thing, WWJD, what would Jesus do? I knew he would do exactly what I did.
Well, of course he would. Yeah.
And when I drop dead during a broadcast, most likely, and I go to the pearly gates, I'm sure that the St. Peter or whomever's going to be up there is going to be so delighted with my actions, with the decision that I had rendered immediately on the spot to ensure that justice was done. I'm going to get an expressway right into the gates, right through the gates, into heaven.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a special entrance for people like you.
Now, I want to know what the difference is between that. Now, obviously, folks, that was a story, all right? That was a story. What is the difference between that in 1939, when there were a boat full of Jews that came to Cuba to escape the Nazi concentration camps? Cuba refused to take them. They came to the port of New York. You know what we did? No. We refused to take them because you know them Jews. You know that you can't have them Jews come here. And we shipped them back to Nazi Germany so they can have their vacation in Dachau and in Auschwitz. Now, for all of you conservatives out there, don't talk to me about securing our borders, because there are starving people in Mexico who have the courage to wade through the desert holding their children in their hands, to break them through a border, risking their lives so they can work hard to feed their family. Something, ladies and gentlemen, maybe Americans should learn to do.
Amen.
You know why we don't like them coming in? Because they make us feel guilty. You have a city like Detroit gone to pot. You think people would say, Detroit's going to pot? Honey, we're moving out. Get the kids. We're moving out. We're going to California. We're going to Alaska. We're going to Texas, where there are jobs. No, we sit there and wait for government assistance. When the heck are we going to wake up? What is so immoral about going from Mexico to the United States? Oh, there's a border. They're breaking the law. What border? That's an imaginary line. You cannot tell the difference between one side and the other. All a person wants to do is freedom of movement, and that's a basic human right, and the conservatives deny everyone that. What difference does it make if I travel to Kansas or to Texas? No one cares. No one asks the question. Oh, but that's the United States. What difference does it make? Oh, that's because it's America, and we got to secure it. People will come in, and they'll do all sorts of bad. Well, you want to know something, folks? They can come in anytime they want. If they want to do all terrible things, they can come in anytime they want. Let me give you a few statistics for you numbnut conservatives. The Mexican border is 1,951 miles, and by the way, slightly larger than that long. Try to secure that. You try to secure that, it's going to cost you about $325 billion a year. And you're going to need an army of at least 40 to 50,000 stormtroopers. What does that look like? A police state. That's what you want, is a police state. How stupid of me. Now, you know what happens if we are successful, which we will not be. We will never be successful securing our border. They'll come in anyhow. They'll find ways. How about the Canadian border? Canadian border's next. They'll come in that way. People will come in. All the bad guys will come in. Hey, the Canadian border is, what is it? I got this thing right here. It's only 5,525 miles long. Let's load it up. We'll have everyone working for the government, carrying guns, securing the border. No one will work.
Well, it seems like we don't mind Canadians coming. It's Mexicans. We
that's right.
Yeah, Canadians are great.
What would Jesus do?
Right.
Exactly.
I know that.
Go it, yeah, heal.
And wait a minute. Let's not forget, there is an American border on the northern part of Canada called, I don't know if you know this place, called Alaska. 1,538 miles. We have a coastline alone of over 12,000 miles. Anyone can come in anytime. Secure that, conservatives. Secure that. You can't. It's impossible. You know, what you do is, whenever I have a problem with something, I bring everything to a ridiculous extreme. For example, government welfare. Government-provided welfare. All I do is say, well, fine, well, it sounds, a few people are on it, government's taking my money, giving it to them. All right, then all you do is bring it to an extreme. Say, what if everybody went on welfare? Well, ball game's over. That means it's illogical to do it. But you say, what if there was no welfare and everyone worked? Would it work? Yes. Everyone works. Welfare, not good. So if you're going to secure 2,000 miles of border, can you secure 21,000? And the answer is no. You cannot even secure the part that you have now. Are we ready for a break? I need some coffee to calm myself down. Let's do that.
You need more caffeine. Our sponsors, Rate Shakers Audiology, FreedomGoldGroup.com, Jinx Health and Nutrition, and McCool's Firearms.
Thank you. Well done.
Hey, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You know, another portion of this whole issue that these conservatives can drive me nuts on is they talk about freedom and all this other stuff and, lessening the debt. How do we lessen the debt? How do we become more free by engaging 40,000 stormtroopers on a particular, it'll build up and build up and build up until basically we're surrounded by stormtroopers. That's all they do. But it's okay with the conservatives because they're illegal aliens. Wait till a flying saucer lands. What are these characters going to do? I want each one of these clowns, and they're all clowns. I tell you, when I think that they're clowns, I'd like for them to go to the Statue of Liberty. And maybe on the inscription they'll read something like, give me your tired, give me your poor, give me your huddled masses yearning to be free. Oh, what happened to that? When that thing was given to us, people just came in. Oh, they maybe signed a paper or something like that. If they had a name that they couldn't understand, they gave a guy Bob Jones. And they gave a guy another name. It was no problem. They came in. No skills, didn't speak the English, no money, nothing. And they became the most productive society we had. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free.
Well, and just we do still allow 85,000 are allowed to come in. Yeah,
85,000.
85,000.
Yeah, 85,000. And in Mexico right now, pending, there's almost 1.4 million applications for a visa for Mexico alone. And we're all afraid, and we're afraid for different reasons. Oh, they're going to take our jobs. Could you imagine? I had a caller last week
Remember that? Yeah.
Remember that guy? Yeah. He called and he says, I'm 57 years old. I've been doing this job for, I don't recall, a long time, 20, 30 years. And he says, I just lost my job to an immigrant, and he'll do it for less money, bring, bang, boom. I go, well, if you've been doing a job for 20 or 30 years, right, and someone from another country who is less educated than you, doesn't speak the language, right, and is not as proficient as you are because you've been doing it for 20 years, and you lost your job, that tells me you should have changed jobs a long time ago. A long time. It's like, I've been working there at Walmart now. I've been, giving them crates out, things with the wheels, you know what I mean? They put the food in that things, and I give the crate, and, somebody else came and took that job. They work there $1 an hour less than I do, and now I lost my job. I think we should stop them people from coming in. They're taking them jobs. Well, maybe this numbnut should have thought, hey, maybe this job is not going to last all my life, and maybe I should step on, learn something, have a job that has more value than just giving out shopping carts. But we don't think that way. We want what we have, and we don't want anyone else. But let me tell you another moral issue that I have, and I've said this, I think, a dozen times before on this program. How could we actually profess what we do? And yet, when we came here, did we ask the natives, the Indians, saying, oh, excuse me, do you mind if we come here and, whatever, here's our names and our addresses where we're from, and we'll settle here, but we'll occupy this land, but we will satisfy this for you financially. Don't worry about it. We'll make it even, Steven. But if you don't want us here, we'll be more than happy to go back. Did we do that?
That's not how it works.
Oh, no. The history books say that. History books actually say that. But what we did, right, we came here and we said, oh, by the way, you thought this was your land? Goodbye, right? We took the land from them, subjugated them, killed them, raped their women, did all this stuff, and then with that, ladies and gentlemen, we gained the moral high ground. Oh, do I feel proud to be an American. Who are we kidding? It reminds me of Oregonians, They love to go, people love to move to Oregon. I love that place. Once they're there, they want no one else to come in. It happens all the time. It's comical. They can move in, bingo, but they don't want any. Once they're in, don't let anybody else in. They have meetings about this. Let's get someone on the line who we have. Joe from Tulsa.
We have a caller.
Hey, Joe from Tulsa. Thank you for calling in Liberty Talk Radio on 1170 KFAQ. What's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, I can't believe what you're saying, that American borders are based on the idea of personal property. If people are allowed personal property, you don't want to have to renegotiate that. You coalesce with other people that are willing to abide by the same definition, and that'll coalesce into a country. We resent every other person in the world for the mere fact that they're not Americans, and they haven't proven themselves yet to be American before coming here. They obviously haven't created America anywhere else, and before anyone is allowed into our country, I want to make sure that they know what America's about and that they're willing to uphold it, or else,
Hey, Giuseppe, I'm going to cut you off, Giuseppe. My father came here from Italy because there was internal, Mussolini was taking over and all that. His father committed suicide. He had to go someplace to support his family. Under the terrible conditions, he came here not speaking the language. In fact, when he died here in America about 20 years ago, and he died at the age of 92 or whatever it was, no, I guess about 89 years old, he still didn't speak the language very well. Really, you had a real tough time understanding him. He came here. He didn't exemplify American. He didn't have to take a test. He just came in. And you know what he did? He went in business for himself. He went in business for himself. Now, wait a minute. There was no American anything. He came over and went in business for himself because no one would. He was hired by a Polish piano factory where they polished the pianos. And at the end of every shift, they used to beat him up because he was the only Italian there.
He didn't come with 1 million people in a Ryder truck every day.
What difference does it make when it comes? Ride a truck or a ship? What difference does it make?
He came through an active. He followed a prescribed method of immigration.
There was no prescribed error. No, Giuseppe, there was no prescribed error.
There's not another country in the world that allows another country's citizens to dictate their immigration policy.
But there was none. All he did was
Mexico.
Joe, stop, Joe. I'm going to cut you off, Joe. Stop. There was no prescribed anything. He got on a boat and he got off the boat and he walked on U.S. land. That's all he did. He did not. There was no prescribed and no test, no nothing. That was my point. Are you there?
Did he come through
Yeah, he went through Ellis Island like everybody else did.
Okay.
And the only difference then is that there was no quota. Now, if there was a quota, there would be all sorts of ships lined up, people going back, people jumping off the ship, there are people coming in illegally, and you would have had an absolute mess on your hands. What difference does it make if these people come in? What difference does it make whether they go through a checkpoint? They just walk through. You know, when I was in France, there was a street. There are streets in France where you see a little concrete block that has an S on it. You know what that stands for? Switzerland. And you walk across the block, and bingo, you're in Switzerland. You walk back, you're in France. There's no one around to check you. What difference does it make?
We have prescribed immigration policy right now. We don't allow other people to dictate what that is.
That's what I mean. Who's doing that? What kind of moral grounds is it based on? That's my point. What moral grounds is it based on?
Well, if you're not conservative, don't argue moral grounds with me. St. Peter would have a rough enough time, for the first 360 days just talking about abortion. So
wait. No, don't change the subject, Joe. I mean, what moral grounds are they basing it on? There's a moral ground. That people should be free to migrate wherever they want. That's a basic human right. Now, whether or not you can do it in other countries is another story. That's a basic human right. Where are the conservatives on that basic human right?
The conservatives are basically defending real human rights.
No, what they are, let me tell you, Joe, stop. You know what they're defending? They are defending a socialist, centralized planning initiative. Immigration is a socialized, central planning initiative by corrupt politicians, and that's what you want us to do.
The reason you're on AM radio tonight is because you're in America.
Oh, please, Joe, please, don't go there, please. Don't tell me that, please. Joe, thank you for calling. I got to go. I can't. I'm sorry, I can't handle it. We can do that all night long. He'll change the subject 15 ways from Sunday, did I make my point? I'm looking at the several people in the studio here today. Did I make my point or not?
Well, you definitely tried.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think you tried.
You did.
Yeah. All right. I'm just saying that. What he's saying is that you're not obeying the rules that Congress, the corrupt politicians, set forth. Thus, it's wrong. Now, I'm here, but I don't want anyone else to come here. This is a wonderful country. Don't you dare come in unless you do all these other things. Isn't that nice?
Well, thank God they're coming. If they wouldn't come, and no one would be able to hit a lick at a snake. These people work for a living, and Americans have quit working for a living, so they ought to have their jobs taken away, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, what's the difference between the boat of Jews in 1935, and us turning back families at the border?
No difference.
There's
no difference.
The moral ground is no different. And if the moral ground is no different, then we should question that policy. This is a university of logic. I want to see it logical way there. And saying, well, we are Americans, and they're going on another subject, which is typical of most people who are ideologues. They change the subject. If you say, well, by the way, if you talk about what Nixon did, they never changed. They changed the subject. They won't stay on it because they cannot defend it.
Well, the big problem, in my opinion, is welfare. And that every time the government gets involved in all this stuff, then you have these debates.
Go.
We got to go? Okay.
Yeah. Well, are we finished for the... Okay, we're going on a hard break for news now? Okay,
Hard
folks, stay with us. Quite frankly, after that screamathon that we just had, I doubt anyone will ever call this station again. But folks,
Oh,
I
that
mean,
wasn't that bad.
I think it's great.
Oh, I thought
well, I almost feel guilty, but
You were still nice, Joe.
Yeah.
you know, just be logical. Don't tell me what Nixon did and his grandmother. You know, don't convolute the whole.
You even called him
Listen,
Gepetti. That was a nice
You
way
know,
to say
I
it.
know everyone's right. Everyone's hollering at me again
You're
here.
fine.
I said the second half of our show we have a guest, and our guest this evening is Jonathan Bartlett. He's the author of a book, MicroSecession. I think it was sent to me from Reason Magazine, and my wife started reading it because I'm behind in 4 books. She says, "You got to put those other 4 books down and read this one." And I started reading it, couldn't put it down, and it's an excellent book. It falls perfectly in line with conversations that we have regarding divorcing yourself from the system. Jonathan Bartlett the book is How to Create an Independent Community which can thrive irrespective of the state of the nation. Jonathan and his wife have 3 children whom they homeschooled. Jonathan is a computer programmer by trade. His book on programming is used widely in institutions including Princeton, Oklahoma State, DeVry universities. His book, MicroSecession, is a how-to which provides both a philosophy of community independence and a practical guide for achieving it. Good evening, Jonathan.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is a great show, and I'm proud to be on it.
I'm surprised you're still here after hearing me scream.
You're not going to yell at him, are you, Joe? Are you going to yell at him?
When he starts calling you
Don't yell at
Gepetti,
your
you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
Let your guests.
But you know, Jim, it was a good idea putting a seatbelt on him that he couldn't really see.
That's good.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much. I have a question in my own pea brain. Is you're a computer programmer, and it almost seems inconsistent that you be talking about divorcing yourself from the system, basically, or microsecession. And I like the approach that you take. What motivated you to buy this to write this book?
Well, there's a lot of things. One of the things as a computer programmer, I can kind of see where the problems in the system are. I realize that we're all connected, and that can sometimes lead to problems. But the reason I think anyone listening to the show kind of has the idea that the government and the society is not exactly structured the way it should be. And so I went and I'm a reader, and so I went on a reading spree. And I read a lot of books on, Peter Schiff, if you're familiar with him.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, he writes great books for if you have $1 million, how are you going to help yourself, in the coming catastrophe. And then there's others that are like prepper books, and those are good books. But there was no book that says, what happens if I have, instead of having $1 million, what if I had $20? What can I do then? Yeah,
That's
so
me.
Hey, I
That's
got
me
my
right
hand
there,
raised
yeah.
up there. Yeah.
I've got
Hey,
tons
well,
of
now
dollars.
we're finally going to get some
Tens of
information I can use here.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I have a pretty decent job, and but I've kind of I don't have the same savings background because of some family catastrophes that I've been through. So, I tried to look and see what is it that I can do to help my family, without having to spend a lot of money. And so, after doing that for a few years, I'm not an expert at it by any means, but I really felt that this is something that other people should be doing. And so that's why I decided to write the book, is just say, hey, look, if you feel the same way I do, but you're stuck because the people who say, here's how you do it, all want to make you, move to China or invest $3 million in gold, I can't do either of those.
Right.
And so just trying to help you come along behind.
Yeah. What is microsecession?
So the idea behind microsecession is that, a lot of people talk about, after the election, a lot of people talked about, oh, we need to secede and stuff like that. And I don't really agree. I think it's kind of like getting married. You might be mad with your spouse, but that doesn't mean that you need to divorce her. We are Americans, and I think we should stay together as a country. But I think that there are small ways that we can kind of step back and say, if your friend is driving drunk, don't ride in the car with them. And so
Good choice.
the idea of the book is say, how can we step out? And one of the core things is that, the money system is horribly managed.
Right.
I mean, just terrible. And so this is a lot of the book is spent on how can I extricate myself a little bit so that I'm not dependent on money. How can I produce things without going through money? What are things of value that I can have or be a part of that are not based on money? And really thinking through, what is the philosophy of value? What does it mean for something to be valuable? And to kind of say, if money is being badly managed, we need to be looking elsewhere for value.
Well, the people, when they hear this, they go, right on, man, right on. I'm with you, right. Yeah. And they're always looking for the how-to. Can you give us 2 or 3 specifics? What do I do? What do I do now? I want a formula, not a formula so much, but you tell me what to do and I'll do it type thing, Well,
actually, one of the last chapters is a budget. And I actually give you a specific budget. I'll give you just a little bit of that. The simplest thing you can do, if you want to just do something that you can do right now, super simple. With every paycheck, take $20 to $50 and go to the local coin shop and buy a single silver coin. And that is the difference between a silver coin and what you have in dollars is that in the coin itself is the value.
Right.
The dollar, it represents value, but it represents value somewhere else. And it's only valuable if the system is trustworthy. If the system isn't trustworthy, then the value of that dollar isn't trustworthy either. But the silver coin holds its value in itself.
Right.
And so that's probably the simplest thing you can do.
You think many people feel that, well, geez, I don't have, $5,000-$10,000 to go to the coin store to buy silver and gold. I'll do nothing. You think there's that mentality that if I only have $20, it's not worth doing anything?
Right. And I think, what makes people successful is doing small right things for a long time.
Right.
And we have very short time horizons. And so I think that if you look beyond that, you say, what happens if I do this every paycheck for the next 3 years? Where am I going to be? And there's other things you can do like food storage, and you can do that a little bit at a time. But the most important thing, I think, which takes more work, is building up your communities. We have an incredibly low amount of value in our communities right now.
Right, I agree. Yeah.
And I've been shaped because, as I said, we've been through several family disasters, and the way that our community helped us out was just amazing. And you can't buy that. It's literally not buyable by money, but you have to make yourself available to your community.
Give us some examples of that.
Well, I lost my oldest and my youngest son.
Oh, geez.
And it was a genetic disorder. And so when my youngest son was in the hospital, my wife was there 24/7, and we homeschool our kids. And so we're part of a homeschool community, and also several church communities. And so while my wife was looking after our youngest, our community came around, and there was literally every hour of the day someone was there taking care of our kids. And so now to do that, you have to have a community, and you have to have people in the community who can give of their time.
Right.
You can't. There is no way that socialized medicine or socialized daycare or anything like that can provide what we were provided by our church and our family and our friends. There's no way.
Right.
And so the value in that is immeasurable, and you can't buy it. There's no amount of money in it. But when you see it happen, and when it happens for you, it's amazing.
Well, most people would say, well, geez, I live where I live. I know a couple of people. This neighbor doesn't talk to me because I don't mow the lawn. Things like that. And what the picture that you are painting is very different than the place that I live. So how do I convert from where I live, other than moving, to where you are?
Well, I have to say that my friends are actually much better at this than I am. I am not as good of a member of community as the other members of my community. But I think one of the ways is to just make time available. We are so used to just one thing after another, and making time available. One thing, when homeschooling, my wife doesn't work, and so she has the flexibility in her life and in her schedule that if someone has a need, she can help them out.
Okay.
And so by making that available, you can increase the value of your community for no
And
money.
I guess she learns of those needs through organizations, including a church that she belongs to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's stop for a break. Folks, we'll be back with Jonathan Bartlett, the author of MicroSecession. Stay with us. We're going to just take a quick break. We have with us Jonathan Bartlett. He's the author of MicroSecession. Falls in line with my philosophy of divorcing yourself from the system, but I think he's a little bit more practical than I am. And he's giving us some helpful hints, things, really touchy things that we can think of. We suggest that you do. By the way, where's the book available?
Well, it's available at Steve Sundry's in here in Tulsa, and then you can get it on Amazon, of course.
Okay. I strongly suggest that you read the book because it's a practical how-to. I got a lot out of it, and I thought I knew what I was doing. I realized I didn't.
Do you have a website, Jonathan? Do you have a website?
Yeah, it's MicroSecession.com, and I do a fairly regular blog in there.
I was going to say
great.
people can keep up with it that way, too.
Yeah.
MicroSecession.com.
Exactly.
Now, quite frankly, I think you guys have structured yourself properly. I'm a big proponent of homeschooling. I'm a big proponent of someone managing the home, in this case, the wife. And so you're doing what I profess should be done. Now, there are people out there that our listeners are saying, well, geez, I don't fall into that profile, so I guess I can't do anything. What do they do? What do you say to those people who, both the husband and wife, are currently working and maybe they have to change course, or what do you suggest?
Well, we all have to start somewhere. I'm not where I'd like to be. We've got a small house in Broken Arrow. I'd like to have a giant 2-acre garden, but I can raise 4 chickens in my backyard. So that's what we do. And so if you're in a 2-income family, first of all, I'd take a double check to make sure that second income is bringing in what you think it is.
Right, I agree.
You are actually the actual tax rate. If you factor everything in. If you're making $60,000 a year, you're paying 43% in taxes. That means that you don't start making your own money until May. So if one of you was not working for the system, all of that's 5 months worth of work that you get value for, even if you don't get money for it.
Right.
But if you can't, there's lots of situations where you can't do that. And what I would encourage you to do is look at your schedule. Is there something that you can cut out of your schedule to make yourself more available to other people?
Right.
The other thing that I think you can do, and if you just interact with people more, you can even, I like bartering, not for getting a good value, but because it puts me into the business of my neighbors. If my neighbor raises rabbits and has rabbit meat, and I raise chickens and have eggs, and we swap, that creates a connection between me and my neighbor.
Right.
And so making those connections and freeing up your schedule so you have space in your life to help out each other. I think that those are kind of the baby steps you could do.
Well, people have this, I think, on the false assumption that you have to have a 2-income family. I've never felt that way. I've always felt that you have a 2-income family, you lose out on the deal.
Yeah, if you think about, especially if you have children, you're basically working for childcare.
That's
and
correct.
you don't. So it's basically you're working to take care of the kids, but you don't get the kids.
Right.
So
Not a smart idea,
Well,
is it?
but, and the big problem with that is that you have someone else raising your children.
Yeah.
No matter which way you look at it, you like to say, "Oh, I'm doing the best for my children." You actually are not.
well, I wouldn't go whole hog on that. There's legitimate reasons, and there's people who they can't, or maybe for your situation that's great.
Right.
But I do think that everyone should take a second look.
Right. Yeah. Well, I like the idea of bartering because in that case, there's no sales tax, is there, of bartering?
Well, I can't really speak to tax issues on that.
That's the disclaimer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, I say that, but anyone who does any large amount of barter, I guess that you have to somehow figure that on your tax return and whatever, to be fair.
The
fair.
IRS, as far as I'm aware, they don't penalize you for personal bartering between friends.
Like eggs for rabbits.
Eggs for rabbit.
They're not going to come after you on that one.
Exactly. Now, I think it's
Not
sad
now,
that,
anyway.
that they kind of say that, oh, well, we have the authority to do it, but we're not going to do it because we're nice. I think that's kind of upside down. But, you know, I
100,000 more agents, they might have some time to do it. Who knows?
exactly.
Yeah, but what if I'm like a plumber and you're a computer guy and you come in and set up my computer network and I do your plumbing?
Yeah,
your
for
toilet.
professional stuff, I'm pretty sure that's taxed. I just don't know exactly how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the titles within the book is Money Secession, Think Differently About Value.
Yeah.
And,
So value is that's one of those things where we're kind of the Walmart culture, you know, and I did this too. I thought I was doing a good thing by shopping at Walmart because, you know, I'm cheap. Some people think I'm a careful spender, but really I'm just cheap.
I like that.
Yeah. Joe can relate.
Can I
Joe can
TM
relate.
that?
But yeah, so you know, I was always taught, you know, don't be extravagant and, you know, that sort of thing. And so I thought, you know, buying at Walmart is the best thing to do. But it turns out that the stuff they sell at Walmart is generally crap.
that's right.
And, you know, it won't last you out of the store. It'll probably break before you open the
I've had it
box.
happen. Yeah.
And, you know, my grandparents had this refrigerator in their house. And I think that thing had been there for 50 years.
Right.
And, you know, they didn't, you know, they probably paid more as a percentage of their income for that particular refrigerator, but they only had to buy one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we need to look at, you know, we buy little junk for our kids and, you know,
Right.
rather than buying lots of little junk, what if we spent more but did it less often?
Right.
And, you know, we bought things that were permanent. One of the things that I like about coins is that if you buy beautiful coins, those are things you can give to your children.
That's right.
You know, when I die, I could give my children money, and that's good. But what if they got, you know, mom's necklace? You know, if you're going to invest $600, why not buy your wife a beautiful gold necklace that she can wear every day, and is still worth $600 when she's done?
Right. Right.
You know, and so just rethinking what we think is valuable, and then and the intangibles. You know, we don't have to price everything. We don't have to count everything. Sometimes the numbers lie.
You mean I shouldn't buy a brand new SUV, Lexus SUV, every 2 years?
Probably not. That
Okay.
would probably not be the wisest
Yeah.
thing.
I don't
I
know.
was
You know,
gonna
it's
go out and buy
interesting.
one.
Is I have
Yeah.
my second office is a
Yeah.
Starbucks down on 96th Street, and I go
Yes,
there a
it
lot.
is.
And the cars that pull up, I mean, a gal come out, you know, gal, she's 120 pounds, and she pulls up in this gigantic SUV
6,000
by
pounds.
BMW. Yeah, 5,000, well, probably 6,000 pounds. You know, by BMW, you know the car costs, you know, $68,000.
Yeah.
And you go, just to go for a cup of coffee, that's kind of an expensive cup of coffee, you know.
Yeah.
You have another, you say make less money. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that's kind of what I was referring to earlier with the, you know, if you have a second income, it doesn't necessarily get you the value. If you are able to cut your hours and cut your money, but you were able to spend that time growing a garden, well, that's value that you're getting for free. You know, you don't have to pay taxes on that. And if you think you have a 43% tax, anything that you make yourself, you don't have to pay that 43% tax. So anything that you buy, you need to add 75% to the price.
That's correct, yeah.
And so after you add 75% to the price, then that's how much you're actually paying. That's how much you have to earn to pay for that.
All right, so if I stay home and put lentils in the crock pot, for example, right, and we have cut some vegetables up and all that, that'll be a pretty inexpensive meal, and it's a good nutritious meal. Or I can buy go to McDonald's, right, for a $4.79, or I guess now it's even more than that, $5.79 value
The number
meal.
2 combo.
But it's not $5.79; it's more like $8.
Yeah, you had to
that's what
earn
he's got to be thinking that way.
$8.
Yeah.
You had to earn $8 to buy that $5 sandwich.
That's right.
That is a whole revolutionary way of thinking, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
Yeah,
is.
it really
Yeah.
is,
And when
yeah.
you have in your book Bank Your Gains, you're talking about taking little bits of money, like you said before.
Yeah, and not only that, you can also buy what I call productive assets, so things that help you produce more. We bought a food dehydrator, so
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
if we get apples cheap, we can dehydrate them and save them for later. Things that help you as a family produce value.
Well, Jeez.
Wow, this
Boy,
has
the
been
left
really
of it.
enlightening, hasn't it?
It sure has, but it's practical.
It is
It's
very
none of these wild things that you can't do.
Well, I just have to say, I mean, a bunch of 99% of the people I know would get a lot out of this book. And I'm looking at the book now, so anyone that's listening, I mean, it's 121 pages. The first thing on the top, step out from a system falling apart. I mean, I love this. I mean,
Hey, how much does that
this
book cost? Because I want to find out how much I have to earn to get it.
$14.95 plus
How much is it?
75%. $14.95.
Hey,
is
listen, that's a value because you're going to save a whole lot of money with.
And I'm sure Amazon, Amazon discounts everything.
Yeah,
so
or
I'm
try to
sure
barter
there's-
for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
I have a cat. I don't have rabbits or chickens, but I have a cat. If anyone's into that, so
All right, we're going to have to wrap up.
What's the website again? One more time, Jonathan.
It's a microsecession.com. And the book, if you look for it on Amazon, it's all one word, MicroSecession.
All right. Jonathan, I
All
want
right.
to thank you very much for
Yes, thank you.
joining
Thank
us.
you very
It's
much.
very been profitable
Yeah.
for us and very enlightening.
Well,
Well,
thanks
thank
for
you
having
very
me.
much.
This
you
is a
calm
great
Joe
show.
down.
Yeah.
Joe is like he's actually happy, calm.
We're going to have a good evening. I can tell now.
And I want to thank our listeners for listening in, okay?
and even our callers.
And our
That's right.
sponsors
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone.
And our
We're all
sponsors,
happy
yeah.
here tonight.
Yeah, we certainly. We're one big happy. I want to thank everybody here in the studio for putting up with me, and I want to thank my listeners for tolerating my screaming memes, okay? And with that, I want to say, stay well, stay tuned.